My name is Lawrence Ray, also known as LRW3, and welcome back to part 4 of the home buying process. Now, on the last video, we left off with you picking your dream home. Congrats on that. Now, it's time for everyone's favorite part. I say that sarcastically, of course. It's paperwork. Now, this part can overwhelm you if you let it. Now, I don't say that to discourage anyone. I've heard horror stories from people who reach this point and just said, forget it, I don't want to do this anymore. Now, this is when you get asked for a lot of information and you're told to start paying out money and you may not understand why or how a lot of these things work. Don't worry, I'm gonna do my best to make it as easy as possible for you. Now, like always, before we get started, remember, I am not a real estate agent. For anything specific to your situation, please contact a professional in your area. Let's get started. Now, over the next video or so, we're gonna take baby steps with this information. Reason being because it is a lot of information and I don't wanna overwhelm you. So before we get into the funding and loan aspect of the home you decided, we have to take the steps to secure the home and make sure the seller and us are on the same page and in agreement that this is your house to be. How we do that is submitting an offer. Now, when it comes to submitting an offer, one of the more important things you need to decide, of course, is how much to offer. Again, we already know the market. We know no seller is taking a low offer. So you just gotta remember the keys we spoke about prior. Remember, time on the market, location of the home, comps in the area, will the home need any repairs or renovations, and most important, your budget. Because sometimes, as perfect as the house is, you may have to pass on it if you can't afford it. Second, decide if any contingencies are needed. Now again, I know I'm throwing a lot of words at you may not know, so you may be sitting there like, what is a contingency? Basically, it is an escape clause in a sales contract that allows you to walk away from a sale with your earnest money. What is earnest money? We'll discuss that in a second. But to be clear, please put down anything that would make you not want the house in your contingencies. If you don't put it down, silence is compliance. Basically, that is you saying everything else other than what I wrote down will not stop me from buying this house. Now, you're well within your right to put down whatever you feel is necessary as a contingency. Doesn't mean the seller has to agree to it, but that goes into negotiations and you all can go back and forth about whatever your contingencies are. Generally speaking, most people at least put a contingency that it has to pass a home inspection to make sure they are buying a home that is structurally sound and doesn't already have major issues. That is a common contingency. Also, unless you're paying cash for the home, which most of us, let's be honest, are not, there will always be a contingency for the appraisal. That is required by the lenders to make sure the property is worth at least the mortgage amount. Basically, they don't want to overpay for it. Let's say in the event the appraisal comes back at $200,000 and the owner is firm at $220,000, the lender is only giving you $200,000 because that is all the house is worth. Now, at this point, either your agent will go back to the owner and try to get him to come down to that 200, or if you really want the house, you will be the one coming out of pocket 20 grand. But please understand, at that point, you are overpaying for the home, which is why the lender stops at its actual value. Because if for whatever reason they have to foreclose on you, they don't want to be in a position where they cannot recoup everything that they're owed. To try to make this as simple as possible, basically it's like getting a car loan on an '01 Honda for 50 grand. Yeah, if you pay that car off, then great. But if I have to repo that car from you, I can't turn around and sell it for 50 grand. So I'm already in the red. The same mindset with the house. I can't give you more than I can get back for it. So when it comes to the appraisal aspect, the lender usually safeguards you anyway if the price isn't right. But the main thing to remember with contingencies, sit down and really decide what would honestly make you not want the house if things didn't go as expected. And make sure those things are included in writing. Now, the last main point when submitting an offer is your earnest money. Now, what is that? Basically, in essence, it is a non-refundable security deposit. Earnest money is basically the money you give to the current owner and say, hey, I am serious about buying this house. Here goes X amount of money right now to take it off the market. And if for whatever reason I change my mind, you keep that for your inconvenience. The only way you are able to get this money back is if the reason you are no longer wanting the home falls under one of your contingencies. So that is why, again, please put everything in writing. Now, please let me be clear. Just because you change your mind on a home and you want to go with another home, that does not entitle you to your earnest money back. If you put earnest money on one home and you continue to look and you see another home you want more, by all means, go get that other house. But please understand, you will lose your earnest money for the first home, as well as you will now owe new earnest money for the second home. So it is very important to know without a doubt what home you want for certain before putting down any money. Now, when it comes to the actual amount of earnest money, it can be as low as $1 or as high as whatever the seller gets you to agree to, honestly. When doing my research, the highest I seen was about 10%. So on a $250,000 house, you could put anywhere from $1 to 25 grand down in earnest money, really just depending on the seller. Now, for reference, when I bought my home, I only put down $1,000 in earnest money. But remember, I bought my home in a buyer's market. Sellers may ask for more now, quite frankly, because they can. They don't want their time wasted with so many potential buyers. They may want to see who is the most serious. Now, don't get me wrong though, the earnest money is not a waste. If you owe any money at closing for closing costs or your down payment, the earnest money is applied there. Essentially, you're just putting some of the money that you will owe later up front right now. And if your earnest money is more than what you would have owed at closing, in most cases, that does get returned to you after closing. For example, if you put down $3,000 in earnest money, but you only needed to bring $2,000 to closing, after you close, you will usually get a check back for $1,000 since you already put that money up in earnest money and you did go through with buying the house. So again, earnest money isn't bad. You don't lose that money and it pays for what exactly it's supposed to pay for, unless you decide not to go through with buying the house for whatever reason you felt was necessary that wasn't covered in your contingencies. If that occurs, then yes, to be clear, you will lose that money. Consider it a sorry for wasting your time tax. Now, I do know people who have lost their earnest money for whatever reason, and of course they don't like it, which is understandable. But if the roles were reversed and you were selling your home and someone held up your time and ability to do so for a few weeks, you too would want to be compensated for that. So you may not agree with it, but you at least have to understand the other side of it. You submitted your offer with your contingencies and your earnest money and it was accepted. Congratulations. The next step in the process is getting that inspection done and getting that appraisal done. On the next video, we're going to break down both of these to make sure you understand why these are so important. I appreciate everybody for watching. Continue to share this to everybody who needs this information and stay with me as we walk step by step through the home buying process.